Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we've got a pretty serious topic. It's frankly frightening. We're talking about the physical struggle of severe mucus overload, and this isn't just a minor cold, but that paralyzing feeling of gasping for air, of suffocation. So our mission is pretty straightforward. We're looking at source materials that tackle this experience head-on, especially where this struggle collides with, well, specific drug effects and really challenging living environments. We're looking for the tangible steps, the lessons on how to stop this cycle.
Right. And the central problem, as the sources detail it, is its physiological failure. When mucus becomes pathologically thick and heavy, it literally obstructs your airways. This leads quickly, to serious respiratory compromise.
So it's really a battle for oxygen.
It's a battle for oxygen,
Right,
exactly. The body's natural systems are just overwhelmed or shut down. So our focus is threefold. First, identifying those critical red flags. Then, understanding the role of medication and environment. And finally, zeroing in on targeted supports like expectorants and N-acetylcysteine or NAC.
Okay, let's unpack that immediately, because the sources are painting a picture of a crisis here. This demands more than just treating one symptom. It sounds like a multifaceted strategy.
It is. It requires medical oversight for sure, but also aggressive changes to your environment and then specific respiratory support to really reclaim your lung health.
A battle on several fronts.
Definitely.
So let's start with recognition. This is where you need to know the difference between just being sick and a real physical emergency.
Yeah.
When you're talking about chest congestion, what are the signs that this is a serious, maybe even life-threatening struggle?
The sources are very clear that these symptoms go way beyond a routine illness. These are critical signals.
Okay, so what's number one?
The first sign is a thick, deep chest congestion that it resists any effort to cough it up. You strain, but you feel like you cannot break it up. It feels solid.
Shock.
Exactly. And following that is the truly alarming part. The body's involuntary struggle for air. We're talking about gasping or making these sucking motions just to pull in oxygen.
Even when you're just sitting still?
Even while at rest, which suggests severe oxygen deprivation. And one of the most frightening things reported was waking up choking or gasping during sleep. The mucus compromises the airways so much when you're horizontal.
That sounds terrifying, like drowning.
That's the sensation described, drowning or suffocation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what other indicators should you be looking for, especially if this has been going on for a while?
You should look for signs that the obstruction is moving beyond just the lungs. So a difficulty swallowing because the mucus feels physically lodged in your throat. It's a major red flag.
Okay.
Also, a persistent, exhausting cough that feels dry but fails to clear anything. It's counterproductive labor. You're wasting energy.
And what about physical signs, things you could see?
Yes, labored breathing while sitting upright, that feeling of suffocation even when you're not lying down, and then the physical markers like pale or blue lips.
Which means not enough oxygen.
Critically low oxygen. That and lingering fevers all point to a systemic crisis.
It's a terrifying picture. And it forces the question, why is the body failing so badly to clear itself? The sources draw a straight line to specific medication effects, mentioning long-acting psychiatric injections like Invega Sustenna. We have to dissect that. Why would those medications pose such a unique risk?
This is where pharmacology meets physiology. The unique danger with long-acting injections is their continuous, sustained effect. The drug is always in your system for weeks or months.
There's no break.
There is no break. And if that medication causes deep sedation and breathing suppression, which some do, that suppression is constant, it's not something you can just shake off.
So let's talk about the body's clearance mechanism. Our lungs are always working, right, even when we sleep. What exactly shuts down when these medications cause that deep sedation?
It affects something called the mucociliary escalator. It's the lung's defense system.
The what? Break that down.
Think of millions of microscopic hairs called cilia lining your airways. They're constantly sweeping mucus and trapped junk upward and out, like a tiny conveyor belt.
I see.
Deep sedation physically slows or even paralyzes these cilia.
So the conveyor belt just stops.
It stops, or it slows to a crawl. And the thick mucus, now full of infection and environmental toxins, just sits there. It stagnates, settles deep in the lung tissue, and hardens.
That's where that solid feeling comes from.
Exactly. The medication doesn't just make you tire. It arrests the vital mechanical action that keeps your lungs clean.
And that sets the stage for this dangerous cycle the sources describe. You have this vulnerability from the medication.
A stalled clearance system.
Right. And then you layer environmental toxins right on top of it. What is the environment doing to make this crisis worse?
It acts like a spark plug. The sources really emphasize things like mold toxins, powerful chemical odors from cleaning agents, exhaust fumes, bad ventilation.
Things that are sadly pretty common in, say, communal housing.
Very common. And these things act as constant irritants. So these irritants force the body to produce more mucus to deal with the inflammation. But the clearance system, that escalator, is already stalled by the medication.
So you're making more gunk with no way to get rid of it.
It's a perfect self-reinforcing storm. More irritation, more mucus, which instantly gets trapped. And that leads to infection, inflammation, and toxic buildup.
And when you're that much distress, you're exhausted. You can't sleep. So the sources talk about a specific counterproductive action people take. They use over-the-counter sleep aids, like ibuprofen PM, just out of desperation. Now wait, if the danger is chemically forced sleep, why would the first impulse be to take more sedatives?
The impulse is completely understandable. You're exhausted, you're desperate. But the sources issue a really stark warning here.
Which is?
Combining any sedative, whether it's the injection or an OTC sleep aid, with heavy congestion, it just multiplies the danger exponentially.
How so?
Taking a sleep aid deepens the breathing suppression, so your oxygen deprivation gets worse. And critically, it also increases the risk of aspiration. That's breathing something into the lungs. When you're heavily sedated, your reflexes, like your gag reflex, are compromised. You could literally inhale that congestion.
So the core learning here is that trying to force sleep when your lungs are already clogged doesn't just fail to solve the problem.
It converts a serious respiratory issue into a potentially fatal one.
It solidifies that whole cycle of distress, no slip, and then reaching for more sedatives.
Precisely. You're trading a few hours of artificial sleep for a much higher risk because you've stopped your body from doing the one thing it needs to do: clear the toxic material.
So what does this all mean for someone looking to break this cycle? The sources outline a necessary three-pronged approach, a holistic strategy.
That's right. And the first strategies are all about stopping the harm from coming in. So, clinical intervention and environmental control.
Okay, step one.
First, identify and taper suppressants. If the root cause involves these long-acting medications, the foundational first step has to be a supervised medical taper. It's about letting the body's natural breathing rhythm and those cilia gradually return to function. Without that, you're fighting an uphill battle.
And second, for those desperate moments, avoid counterproductive sedatives. That means stopping the OTC sleep aids, right?
Immediately, especially things like ibuprofen PM that are just making the breathing suppression worse when the lungs are already struggling.
And third, the environmental cleanup.
Improve the environment. Recovery is impossible if your lungs are constantly being irritated. So you have to aggressively reduce exposure to mold, chemical odors, fumes, poor ventilation. You have to be able to breathe clean air to heal.
That's the hard work removing the source. But the sources note that even after you do that, you still need active support to clear out what's been trapped for so long. The congestion doesn't just disappear.
Exactly. And that brings us to the targeted supports, the tools for actively repairing respiratory health and expelling that trapped mucus.
Which were the two you mentioned at the top.
The two key ones are expectorants and N-acetylcysteine, or NEC.
Let's focus on expectorants first. These are the common OTC mucus relief meds. What's their specific job here?
Expectorants are mobilizers. They work by thinning the congestion, they increase the water content in it. Their essential function is to take that agonizing, strained, unproductive cough and transform it into a productive cough.
A game changer.
A total game changer, because it allows your body to physically expel the mucus instead of letting it sit there and solidify. As it breaks up, the airways open, and breathing starts to feel palpably freer.
So the expectorant is doing the physical thinning. But then we have NAC, N-acetylcysteine. The sources suggest this has a more comprehensive chemical function. What is NAC doing at a molecular level?
NAC is a powerhouse. It's multi-layered. First, and most importantly, it's a mucolytic. It chemically helps dissolve that heavy, hard-to-move buildup.
How does it do that?
It actually breaks the chemical bonds within the mucus proteins, so it tackles the stubborn consistency of the congestion directly.
Okay, that's interesting.
But here's where it gets really powerful. NAT is a precursor to glutathione, which is often called the body's master antioxidant. When your lungs have suffered chronic inflammation and repeated infections, they have massive oxidative stress. Glutathione is crucial for protecting the lung tissue from long-term damage.
So it's not just helping clear out the gunk, it's actually helping to repair the damage from that whole cycle.
Exactly, it's repair work. And third, NAC helps with detoxification. It helps clear out the inflammatory waste left behind by all those infections. It helps the body resist new infections, stopping that devastating cycle of buildup and strain.
So one is mobilizing, the other is dissolving and repairing. That distinction is key. The sources have a great analogy to help visualize this.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Imagine your lungs are a drainage pipe that's completely clogged. The combination of the toxic environment and the suppressive meds, that's like debris and hardened cement filling up the pipe. No air can get through.
Okay, so in this analogy, the expectorants are like, what? High-powered water pressure?
Exactly. The water pressure physically pushing the debris out, making the cough productive.
And the NAC.
The NAC is like a chemical solvent. It's breaking down that stubborn cement, allowing the walls of the pipe to clear so air can finally flow freely again. You really need both functions to clear a system that's been congested for that long.
That makes perfect sense.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the takeaway is vital. Respiratory health and mental health can't be disconnected, especially when you have these structural factors like poor housing, pollution, and medication side effects all converging.
Before we wrap up, we have to address a crucial medical reality here. The supports we talked about, NAC and expectorants, they are medical substances. You absolutely must independently verify the safety, potential drug interactions, and the right dosages with a qualified healthcare professional before you even consider using them.
That's right. This discussion is based solely on the source context about one specific recovery journey.
So our final provocative thought for you to consider, drawn directly from this testimony, is this.
The sources argue that severe respiratory illness in marginalized settings isn't just a random medical event, it's the predictable outcome of structural neglect and environmental inequality. So this raises an important question for you to think about. How does recognizing this connection, that the air we breathe and our ability to clear our lungs are influenced by policy, housing rules, medical transparency, how does that empower communities to advocate for safer living conditions and for the fundamental right of every single person to just breathe freely?